Welcome to the Career Matters podcast. I am your host, Nisar Ahmed. I am the founder and editor of the blog careermatters.com, and this is episode 24 of the Career Matters podcast. And this episode is part of the Expert series. And for today's Career Expert series episode, I am interviewing Virginia Franco, who is a regular contributor and columnist at Career Matters. But before I bring her on, I just wanted to read a brief introduction so everybody knows who she is. Virginia Franco is a double certified executive resume writer and the owner of Virginia Franco Resumes. Her resumes are 100% customized for today's readers, and they typically garner interviews in 60 days. Her LinkedIn profiles are among the top 1% viewed, so she covers all aspects of writing, whether it's LinkedIn, resume, cover letter. Virginia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. I always like to start off by asking my guests a little bit about themselves. I know I read a very brief bio, but I'd like to hear more. A little bit about your practice and also how you became a career expert.
Sure. Well, I have been writing resumes for more decades than I care to count, but my background is journalism and corporate communications, which means that at this point, I've written for newspapers, magazines, websites, just a little bit of everything. And what I learned was that when it comes down to it, with all sorts of skim reading, and resumes and LinkedIn profiles always fall into that rush category. People are always pressed for time when reading them. They read much the same that readers do of newspapers and magazines. And a lot of my success comes from incorporating the principles that I learned for writing for newspapers to my career documents.
Okay. So you turned your existing writing experience from the journalism field and you translated it into writing resumes and LinkedIn profiles.
Yes, I always was writing for friends and with a lot of success, and slowly but surely built up my business that way.
That's great. So before we get into the questions I have for you, I wanted to ask you, where are you calling from?
I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. Isn't it the hometown of the Charlotte Bobcats?
It is, actually.
It's a team owned by Michael Jordan, right? The legendary basketball player.
Yes, absolutely. That's right.
Okay, perfect. So other than that, okay, I actually shared something about Charlotte, but other than the Bobcats and the fact it's owned by Michael Jordan, what is another fun fact or something that people typically do not know about Charlotte?
Charlotte is the birthplace of the some say of the Declaration of Independence. They actually signed their own Declaration of Independence before the Founding Fathers did in Philadelphia.
Oh, that's a lot of history. You're going back centuries now.
According to them, yes.
No, that's an interesting fact. It's good to know. Now, okay, we'll get into the interview. So the question I have for you is, in terms of the actual resume, what do you see when people come to you? What are some of the biggest mistakes they typically make?
That's a great question. The very first piece that I see people missing is they do not include a headline and a lead paragraph in their resumes or in their LinkedIn profiles, for that matter. Much like with a newspaper article, when we skim newspapers, we always read a headline and a lead paragraph. We usually don't take the time to read the full article. The same is true with resumes. So by including those two key components, what you do is you give the reader a strong sense of what your story is about, and you give them enough information to compel them to read more when they have more time. That's number one. Number two is that people don't take into account that the majority of their readers will be looking at these documents on a screen. They will not be printing them out. And online reading is quite different than print reading. And in my experience, resumes that are written for print do not fare well online.
Could you expand on that when you say the difference between online reading and print reading? What are we talking about? Are we talking about formatting, or are we talking about fonts? What exactly are we differentiating?
All of the above. So when people read online, unlike in print, we have a hard time digesting text that is very dense. And after a while, black and white gets a little tiring. Additionally, certain types of fonts do not translate as well on the screen. Lastly, our eyes do not read as smoothly from left to right, especially when we are in a rush, as they do when they're in print. What we know happens is the eye tends to start left, but then it jumps all over the place depending on what captures our attention on the screen. So you can't always count on a reader getting the most important part of a sentence, for instance, if it doesn't appear at the very beginning or the left side of each sentence.
Now that's interesting. So you're saying that people are still following the traditional method of creating resumes for print.
They are.
Yeah.
And I run every document I write past my phone. If it can't get through my iPhone, my 5-inch screen, and I can't get the salient points scrolling with my thumb, I go back to the drawing board, because that is often where people are looking at my documents. Especially LinkedIn, they are 50% of users are on the app. They're not on the big screens. And then Resume, it's upwards of half the people. It depends on the industry, but you should count as much as 50% of your readers looking at your documents on handheld devices.
That's an interesting statistics, because I don't think most people, even when I used to create my resumes, I haven't thought about that. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, we all use our smartphones and tablets for almost everything now, right? Keeping in touch with people. Right. Banking, it's just a matter of time.
It's everything. That's right. Yeah. And 5 years ago, people had smartphones, but they were not reading important documents on that. But that's all changed in the last, and I've seen the change dramatically in the last 18 to 24 months.
That's interesting. So now we have looked at the mistakes, right? So I want to switch gears on some actionable items or tips people can do to really spice up their resumes.
Okay. Well, the biggest bang for your buck, in my opinion, is reformatting to appeal to an online reader. So what that means is, if you have a series of bullets when you're talking about your job description or your achievements, always make sure to have at least 0.5 points or half an inch of white space in between each and every bullet. Secondly, I recommend that people keep their bullets to no more than 2 lines wherever possible. That don't on a screen, a 4-line bullet translates into something much larger, and that becomes dense text that is much too hard for the reader to look at. Secondly, I recommend that you pick a sans serif font, which is a font that does not have the serif fonts have little tails on the ends of the letters. So ideal fonts for online reading are Arial, Tahoma, Calibri, to name a few. And then with regards to, and this is a simple fix, make sure that you have a headline at the top of your document telling the readers the kinds of roles that you are seeking. So if you are an architect or an enterprise architect engineer, make sure to put that on the top of your resume. Don't make the reader have to guess the kinds of roles that you're targeting based on your experience. It's easier to spoon feed it to them so that takes the guessing away from it.
Okay, those are great tips, and to be honest, I haven't heard them before, so that's great. I love to hear something new, and same. I'm sure the readers as well as the listeners as well. That's a great tip. Now going back, so we've covered the resume, and I'm going to ask you a controversial topic because the reason it is controversial because I hear different answers.
Okay.
Cover letters. Right? Cover letters. Today, technology has changed a lot of things. Are they still relevant?
That is a great question. And in my opinion, the jury is still out, but I'll tell you what I have seen anecdotally from my experience. My take is that about 30% of people read a cover letter when it is sent, whether it is asked for or not. But what I do know for certain is that when a cover letter is requested, you will not be considered without it. So what I tell people is have one at the ready, but know that when it's not requested, you have a 1 in 3 shot of it being read.
Those are interesting statistics. What I'm enjoying, Virginia, about this interview so far is you seem to have all the stats. It's like data-based, fact-based research.
Yeah, don't ask
me
where I found them because at this point I can't recall, but I know that they were grounded in some numbers that I had pulled over the years.
Hey, listen, I think based on the work you do, I think those are very, it sounds like very fact-based numbers. So
yeah,
I'm not going to ask you for the sources, but it does make sense.
Okay, thank you.
So now so what I'm hearing is, if I can summarize your last answer,
sure.
Cover letters, when requested, are required, and if you don't send them, you might be disqualified. So how can someone draft an effective cover letter?
Well, that's great. Another great question. First off, it's important to remember that these are going to be read online. They're going to be through email or uploaded on a screen. So keep those online writing principles in practice. Keep your paragraphs to 2 to 3 lines max. Keep white space between everything you write. With a cover letter, I follow a very basic formula. The first paragraph says, "This is why I'm perfect for the role." Second paragraph elaborates a bit. And then I always make sure to list 3 achievements that showcase why I'm the perfect fit. And I make sure to have achievements that have some data or some figures in them because numbers always speak louder than words. And then in closing, as my 4th paragraph, I sort of repurpose what I've written on that first paragraph, rephrase, "This is why I'm great," and thank them for the time.
No, that's great because one thing that stood out for me is the whole concept of making sure your achievements are noted and data because numbers stand out. It's more, I think, more recruiters and hiring managers want to see actual data. I increase sales by 100% rather than I'm a great communicator. Something quantitative versus qualitative.
And that's a big part of my resume writing collaboration with clients is to pull out those numbers and figures. And you don't have to be in sales to have numbers. Everyone has them. It's just a matter of figuring it out. And I'm focused on, rather than listing responsibilities when I am talking about what you do, I want to make sure to envelop them as an achievement.
Now I wanted to switch gears a little bit because you mentioned this yourself a couple of times during our interview, is LinkedIn. How relevant is LinkedIn today for job seekers?
LinkedIn is, in my opinion, the place to build your network and find people and to get found. Recruiters are on there. LinkedIn has a tool called LinkedIn Recruiter, and seems to me they've made a gold mine off of it. It is a tool that they sell to HR companies, recruiters, and LinkedIn, and it allows people to search through LinkedIn to find qualified talent. So they're on there, using that tool to find us. Additionally, because networking gives you such a bigger return on your job search investment, using LinkedIn to do what we used to do in the olden days, which is call people, email people, figure out who we know that know others. LinkedIn offers all of that information all in one place, and you can use LinkedIn to see who you know at certain companies, see who you know who know others, and really initiate those networking discussions.
That's I like I like that you brought up networking, because I've had people reach out to me that I've worked with across path in the past, saying, "Hey, I noticed you work for this company. Do you have something to share?" Similarly, I have done that as well, and that's the beauty of LinkedIn. It's very, very public. You just logged into LinkedIn, and it automatically shows you what your network is doing. So it's a great resource.
Right. And it's a great place to figure out who you'd like to be in your network. And I'll throw another stat out there for you. When applying for jobs through online mechanisms where applicant tracking software is reading, you should expect about a 5% return on your investment. In other words, you almost have to apply to 100 jobs to get 5 responses, where through networking, you can expect about a 6-fold return on that. So if I'm going to spend my time job searching, I'm going to focus on the networking versus the tedious process of applying to hundreds and hundreds of jobs online.
Oh, wow. So let me get this straight, right, for the listeners, just to clarify. So if you apply traditionally to a job site, you will have to apply for 100 jobs to get 5 responses. That's on
average. Now, mine do a little better, but
yeah,
about 10%, but it's not. It's a really frustrating process.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even if it is 10%, it's
great.
A lot of work. It's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. But with LinkedIn, you're saying that it could be anywhere from 30 to 60%.
Yep.
Wow.
LinkedIn using it to really network. That is the absolute best return on your investment when you're job searching.
Yeah,
use the postings to see who's hiring, to make sure you have the right keywordings in there, to get an idea of companies that you might be interested in. But there are a variety of reasons why postings that are available are already filled, aren't actually valid anymore. So save the expense and spend a small portion of your time on that, than the majority of your job search on using LinkedIn and networking. Now,
in my introduction of you, I mentioned that your profile, LinkedIn profile, is among the top 1% most viewed. So that's a huge accomplishment, because the latest statistics, LinkedIn has 430 million users worldwide. So being in the top 1% it's amazing. So one of the questions I want to ask about LinkedIn is, what are some of the things job seekers or even LinkedIn users in general can do to make their profile more catchy and effective?
Sure. The first thing that needs to be done is you need to try to have as complete a profile as possible. You will rank higher on searches when all of the sections are complete. Now, there's some that you just can't fill out, like patents and things like that, but make sure to, I can't tell you how many times I've seen where people overlook the summary section, where they haven't filled out their personal interests, or they don't have volunteer work on there. All things that maybe don't seem as relevant perhaps to a job seeker, but the point is that the more complete your profile is, the better you'll do on searches and on views.
And I believe LinkedIn has that profile optimizer. It tells you how much you need to fill out to make it 100% complete.
Yeah.
I think
and the highest you can get from, LinkedIn keeps a lot of their information close to the vest, but all-star status is sort of what you want to strive for. And there's a little circle on the top, go to editing your profile, a little circle that says where you are in terms of it out. All-star status is as high as you can.
That sounds great. So one thing I wanted to ask you is now I want to go back to your business. You have coached or helped a lot of individuals, and one thing I always like is to hear stories. So, of all the individuals you have helped, is there I'm talking about the ones that have come to you for they were in a situation where they were frustrated. You helped them with their resume and cover letter,
Mm-hmm.
and they turn things around. Is there one story or one person that really stands out for you?
Oh gosh.
I know
I
it's
mean,
hard to play favorite.
yeah, I'm really lucky. I get testimonials all the time. You know, I did just get a woman. We're probably it was in the spring, so we're almost at the end of the summer, and she had taken years off to raise her children, and she wanted to get back into work, and she didn't know where to start. She was in her late 30s, early 40s, and so all of her information was dated. And we did her resume, we did her LinkedIn profile, we did her cover letters, and she immediately started getting recruiter outreach on LinkedIn. And within a matter of 2 weeks, she was getting inquiries, and she had a couple job offers within the end of the 2-month period.
Wow.
The transformation was just remarkable, yeah.
I mean, I was expecting a story of someone who got laid off and lost their job, but this is completely
well, I've helped people like that.
This is amazing.
I've helped people like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just so touched because she took the time recently to reach out to me and just tell me what a big difference it made.
Yeah,
but she did her part. She did her part. Like, she made sure she had a great picture of herself on LinkedIn. She followed up on who was looking at her on LinkedIn. She got her resume in front of anyone that she thought could help her. So it was really a partnership.
That's a great story. I mean, that's very inspiring. So if she can take some time off and come back to the workforce and be sought out, I think most people are not in that situation, and they should be doing better. So that's a great, inspiring story. So we are coming to the end of our recording here, Virginia. I think so far, lots of great data, lots of great information so far. Any last words before we conclude?
You know, I think that a lot of people, when they get started writing their own documents, they fall into the trap of, let me just list all of my responsibilities. So what I always, part of my discussion with my clients is, let's talk about figuring out your achievements. And so I recommend people ask themselves, what am I proudest of in this role? What people have I helped? What processes have I improved? Have I saved any time? Have I helped my company save any money? Were there goals set out for me that I exceeded? And generally, by asking those sorts of questions of oneself, you are able to come up with some quantifiable achievements.
So
and it applies from the
self-reflection.
IT world to project management, everything.
Mm-hmm. So self-reflection, asking yourself those questions can help you craft the next path or resume for you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Craft your achievements, and in doing so, you're also describing your responsibilities, because that people want to see. They don't want to see a laundry list of what you've done. They want to see some bottom line examples of what you can bring to your next role.
Absolutely. So if after listening to this, if the listeners wanted to reach out to you, what are some of the best ways to reach out to you?
They can absolutely check out my website and contact me through that. It's virginiafrancoresumes.com. My email is listed on my website as well. Additionally, I do offer a series of videos they're not videos, they are webinars that sort of outline step-by-step instructions along the lines of the information that you and I have talked about today. because I recognize that not everyone has a budget for writing their own, for working with someone to write documents.
Yeah, thanks for putting that information out there. And what I will do is, as I always write a summary of the episodes, I'll make sure to include the links to the website so that people can easily find you. So I wanted to thank you for being a guest here. I'm sure the listeners have learned some great ideas as well. I'll be honest, I've done this interview many times with other experts. You've given some fresh perspective, fresh ideas. So thanks for that.
Oh, I'm glad.
And thanks for being a guest.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, folks, for listening to this episode of the Career Metis podcast. I have written a brief summary of the interview with links to Virginia's websites, virginiafrancoresumes.com. And if you liked what you heard, feel free to subscribe to the Career Metis podcast on iTunes. If you enjoyed this episode and also learned something new, feel free to post a comment or a review. And if you really loved it, definitely go ahead and share this episode with your social feeds. Until next time, this is Nisar Ahmed, your host for the Career Metis podcast. Thank you.